Thanks for staying with News at Prime tonight. The Bertha Gxowa Memorial Lecture is dedicated to promoting her vision under the theme Joining Hands to Promote Job Creation, Alleviation of Poverty and the Development of Enterprises. This year's event is set to focus on unlocking the entrepreneurial spirit of women. The lecture will be taking place at Wits University's Origin Centre in Braamfontein. To discuss this further, I'm joined by the Bertha Gxowa Foundation founding trustee, Dr. G.Ramokgopa, chairperson, Dr. N.Magau, and N.Magau, who of course is also the speaker of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Let me thank you all, ladies, for your time tonight. And it's certainly incredible that we have this conversation around one of the many women in South Africa's history who are part of South Africa's liberation movement, who are one of those that have been written out of the history books. And so it's always great to see the effort that is being made. The agenda so that South Africans know about them and know who they are. So before we get into then what you want to accomplish through this lecture, let's talk about Umam Bertha. Who was she to an audience that might to be recognized? I'll begin with you, Dr. Ramokgopa.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us here, and good evening to viewers. It is very important to celebrate our heroes and heroines because we are afresh all the time instead of building on. Mama Gxowa is one of the foundations of our democracy. She was a struggle hero. She was part of the march, Women's March in 1956 as a young girl. She actually started being a woman activist in her teenage years. And that is why we also want to encourage younger women to come on board because they can achieve greater things even from their youth. For me, Mama Bertha Gxowa represents women and leadership who are ethical, who are empowering, and who are also impactful. Women of courage, and indeed women who had the future generation's interests at heart. She's one of the women I call one of my mothers. Actually.
Wow, that's great. Dr. Ravani?
Thank you very much for having us tonight to celebrate this great entrepreneurs, and it is interesting also at a time when our country is going through challenges of unemployment. Mama Bertha Gxowa was a champion of entrepreneurship. She established entrepreneurship programs in communities to be able to promote and to see women entrepreneurs thrive. And that is why it was important that during these challenging times, we are able to draw on the light of Mama Bertha Gxowa to come and illuminate. And in particular, we are honored that we have our Minister of Small Enterprise, Nkumbuzo Ntshavheni, who is very much committed to promoting entrepreneurship, and for her to be our keynote address, it's something that we are looking forward to.
All right. Ma'am, my question?
You know, Mama Bertha is one of those few women that during the apartheid years, in the early 50s, she was charged for treason. And she was banished until shortly before the unbanning, or when the organizations were unbanned, because she was confined to her house arrest, and it was only lifted during that particular process. But it was amazing for me because I come from Ekurhuleni, and being young at the time, but also after unbanning, I was still radical. But she's one of those few women that came on board and called all of us, because we're leaders in our own right. And she said, time for fighting is over. Let's combine, let's meet, let's talk. And Women's League, as a young person, and she came on board and said, no, time for fighting is over. What we need to do is to bring that energy to rebuild our country. And that's why, as the ANC Women's League and the IFP Women's Brigade, we combine. And we owe it to her, especially when the violence ended. And we started some small projects to recognize the work that women need to do, because many of our women were not educated, they did not have the skills, they did not have income, and yet they were supposed to raise children. And she said, it's time for us to come on board, train each other, support each other, and be able to move forward. And you will know that yesterday it was happening. Even the inception of the Bertha Gxowa Foundation was based on the fact that we have so many young women out there who drop out of school. Others are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. Therefore, we need to actually ensure that we ignite or reignite that light or the vision of Mam Bertha.
You know, it's such an important message, especially around entrepreneurship. But when we look at the state of the economy and where we are today, you're telling many young women who, if the statistics are anything to go by, those young, especially black women, would be facing really the worst of this economic turmoil. Where do you even begin? And what are the solutions that you would want to provide them with? Because these are also people that have lost faith in the system simply because they've tried different avenues and mechanisms of accessing opportunity, but they simply haven't been able to.
There's a very important issue that you're raising, Cathy. What we need to acknowledge is that the solution is in our hands, the solution is in our intellect, solution is in also our hearts, our determination and our resolve. I guess during the time of Bertha, when they were younger, it was overwhelming to ever think of living in a democracy. Women who took our advice to go to school and they have degrees, they find themselves facing a very difficult economy. And they can break it down in pieces. They can break it down in chunks that they can manage. And that is why, just to think back, when I was the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane, Tshwane's economy, I don't know now, but at that time, the economy of Tshwane was growing at a higher rate than the provincial and the national. And we sought to understand with economists what was the underlying success factor. And it was small businesses that were really contributing to that higher trajectory. So we need to remember that it is a drop of water, that many drops of water that make an ocean. So all the small businesses, if we make and Mam Bertha, start where you are, right in the corner where you are. And with the support from organizations like Nozala and others that are intent on investing in women entrepreneurs, we can leverage those facilities. One contribution that Namani and Mekwe can talk about is how the programs, the empowerment programs for entrepreneurs. Also, when I was chair of the Progressive Women's Movement, we started cooperatives of women in the linen space. And now we cannot give up, we dare not give up. Our forebears never gave up and they succeeded.
And I think, you know, that's just an indication of the fact that there are some success stories along authority. And, you will have many entities that do take on small businesses, whether through incubator type setups, and they do promise some kind of capital or seed funding to assist these organizations. But merely being able to get in the room is such a difficult task, and the red tape in and of itself can be so difficult over a period of years that if you're not working elsewhere and still trying to push whatever small to medium entity it is that you have, if you don't have the right connections, it's simply not going to happen for you. How do you begin to
fortunate that at this moment in time, development of entrepreneurship is being spotlighted in the country. And one watches with excitement the coming together of the public and the private sector, whether it's also heightened by the challenges of unemployment that we all face in the country. The investment, summits that we've had, where you've seen public and private sector come together and rapidly developed entrepreneurs and also small and medium enterprises. But also that having been said, government's enabling policies have been there, but implementation has been a challenge. And implementation can only work where you have partnership between business and government. We've also seen business go and approach government. So business resilient enterprises. I would like to believe that with the growing focus on joining hands to find new solutions, we can be in a position to sharpen the growth and development of enterprises and ensure that we have competitive enterprises. Mama Bertha Gxowa was also a resilient person and had a lot of self-confidence. During a time when it was not common to talk about public and private sector partnership, Mama Bertha Gxowa came up and was the one who approached business and brought together business and also civil society. She was also a leader of workers and was able to bring in all of these angles to ensure that particularly women entrepreneurs can grow their enterprises.
Sure. In a moment, I want us to continue our conversation. I'm going to give you, Mamegwe, an opportunity to also weigh in on this conversation. For now, however, we have to take a quick ad break. I'm back with your headlines and the rest of this conversation. I also want us to get into other issues. Of course, this lecture falls at a time where the world is marking the period of gender-based violence and the campaign being, fully able to manifest whatever it is that they can do, especially in the world of business. So we'll take a short break, our conversation and the headlines after this. Do stay with us.